I don't know if I've covered politics now 45, almost 50 years in Chicago land, and I've got to say that it's hard to conclude anything. But the one conclusion I can make is nobody knows what a TIF is better than my guest, Tom Tresser. Now, you may not know Tom Tresser, or you may know him in so many different lights. He's an educator, he's an organizer, he's a creativity champion, public defender, and fighter of privatization. He's been doing civic engagement and grassroots democracy efforts for over 50 years, and his first voter registration campaign was in 1972. And it's amazing. I didn't know this. He's acted in some 40 shows and produced over 100 plays. I got to connect with you on some of those plays to get some of my stuff published. But welcome to the little podcast here, Tom. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank
we go way back. I think when I first knew you, I might have had some hair.
Yeah, you and me both. Believe me, I'm lucky. I have that Ronald Reagan. See, I think if you're a Democrat and a conservative, your hair stays on. The more liberal you go, you're going to lose it. Okay, so I don't know if that helps explain the difference. But Tom, listen, tell us what. Tom, tell us what is a TIF. Explain it to a lot of people don't understand it. Even I've covered politics all these years. I don't understand it completely enough to know whether it's good, bad, or ugly. What is a TIF?
Well, it stands for tax increment financing, TIF, and it's your property taxes. So if people don't remember anything other than this, it's a device that sucks up your property taxes and removes them from public use and places them into secretive funds controlled by your mayor. So that's a thing that we need to remember, that it's a mayoral thing. So it's your municipality made possible by state law. So the state law allows municipalities to create these things, but each one is operated by its Department of Economic Development or Planning, whatever it might be called in your municipality. And that's usually run by someone appointed by your mayor. So this is a thing controlled by mayors, and they love them. They are created and used supposedly, and I'm going to have big air quotes around this word, economic development. So back in the day, I guess the judgment was made, we want to have economic development in places where there is none, or where the phrase is sometimes heard, the market has fled. Now, we could stop there and have a long conversation of what does that actually mean? It could be redlining, so that's a racist practice, or it could just be a bunch of poor people. So, the bank doesn't want to come where the poor people are. So there is no bank. There's only the cash machines, or what do you call it, the payday loan stations and places like that. In any case, what happens is if you're in a blighted area, and again, this is a very loaded term, I think your listeners and viewers may have a sense of, like, when I say blight, they may conjure up an image of maybe abandoned property,
right?
Weeds, storefronts boarded up, shady folks hanging out, in the middle of the day, doing no good things. Kind of like it's sort of like a ghost town thing, maybe. People can think of different things when they use the word blight. Right. But in the Illinois statute, it has specific meaning. And it's like a checklist of about 13 factors. And to prove 5 of them, which is done by these highly paid consultants, if you can prove 5 of them, then you can get this designation that this area that you're looking at, with these 42 properties or whatever it is that you're deciding to look at, if it meets the criteria, it's blighted. That's step 1. Then you can create a TIF if you can also show that, but for the public money, this is called the but-for rule, the project that's under consideration could not happen. So Tresser Development wants to build a little strip mall on 119th Street in Halstead. Normally, I would look at my assets. I go to a bank and get a loan, right? And so say it's a $5 million project. I'm going to have like 6 little stores, like could be a flower shop, a dry cleaner,
Yeah.
We've seen these things a million times, right? And it's going to cost $6 million. I have $2 million of my personal money, and I'm going to need $4 million construction loan, and I can get going, right? And what happens if it's built? I charge rents, people come, there's jobs,
It's a business, right?
Standard.
It's a business investment, right?
And
yeah.
I'm a developer. This is my thing. I'm going to make this little mall happen. But you know what? It's in this one of these blighted areas. So what it could be it could mean that people don't have a lot of money necessarily in that area. They could be working class people. There could be a lot of reasons why this area is sort of just sort of chugging along, not doing very well. And I go to the bank and I say, I need that 3 million, to make my project. And they say, yeah, Tom, that's a dicey area, man. We can't give you that because you know why? They'll rob you. The poor people there can't afford the flowers. Whatever is in their minds. And this again is weighted with racism and weighted, stuff from 100 years. But this is kind of seeped into the banking rules. So we can lend you the money, but it's like 20 points because it's a high risk. I go, oh my God, to make that happen, I'm going to have to charge rents so high that, only a jeweler, only a state jeweler could be there. So the whole thing is doesn't work. I need some free money. So where can I get some free money? Well, if I declare that area a blighted area, and I put a TIF in that 119th Street in Halstead, that's now my little dot, my map, my pin of this project is inside this larger TIF. I can get up to 30% from the city free money. So in this little example of 5 mil, so if I have 2 mil, the city puts up 30%, that's like maybe 1.5 mil. And now I'm asking for a much smaller loan. And now with the TIF in there, it looks a little safer and maybe I can get that loan and build my project. Now, the city giving me that money, and it's only for construction. This is an important point for your people. If in your world that what you want for your community involves human beings, like I'd like to hire some more nurses for COVID or librarians or school teachers, TIFs are not for you. It's only to build something. Okay, so now the TIF is established. The city council has said the TIF for Mr. Tresser's development is approved. They must approve it. And now I break ground and I start getting free money depending on the deal. Sometimes it's a third, a third, a third, like a third when I get the permits, a third when I halfway, and a third when I give a certificate of completion. So this money is not a loan, okay? It is a gift. So what happens if, for example, I misjudged and my project is a bust? I can't get the good, the deal I thought I had with the florist fell through, whatever. And it's like a year later and it's like a ghost town and I sell the thing for a song, just to get out of the deal. The city doesn't get its money back. Adios. On the other hand, suppose I judged wisely and my little project is very successful and a few years later I sell it for 10 mil. So I walk away with my profit, so I pay off the bank. I repay myself plus my profit. But what about that 1.5 mil I got from the city? Do they get that back with interest? No, I walk away with that.
Wow.
So that's how TIFs work. And because the law is so flexible and so kind of elastic, it means that with your consultant in tow, you can find any spot in Chicago or Illinois and call it blighted. So that's why LaSalle Street,
Right.
is blighted. The West Loop, the South Loop, the hottest retail areas really in the state are blighted and are TIFed. So that's kind of the basic. Now, how the increment works, we're getting into, I don't know if you want to get into the weeds, but that's essentially how it works.
Well, I know that some of my listeners out in Orland Park, the mayor there has proposed 3 TIF districts, and he's identified 3 properties that have already been purchased by developers. I mean, developers have put millions. One is a grocery store chain, one is a huge land developer, but they've been sitting on it for a lot of years, $20 million, I think, in one case, and they haven't done anything with it. And now they've declared those properties, just as you said. I heard the word blighted. In each of the cases, I'm going blighted. Orland Park is not blighted. Orland Park is this beautiful place. And now suddenly we got blighted areas like pimples breaking out all over the place.
Yeah,
and,
well,
this is how
they do it. So, well, if they satisfy the statute because they must have hired a consultant that walked the properties. Now, just to give you an example of how ludicrous this is, when LaSalle Street was declared a TIF, The consultant cited cracked sidewalks as a factor in the blight of LaSalle Street, and the fact
And
that
that was one of 5 of the criteria you
yeah,
said of the
yeah, like because
whole.
there's vacancy rates and obsolescence, and there's a whole menu. But obviously, not every office tower on LaSalle Street is 100% rented. So if some of the towers are 70%, 60%, they called that excessive vacancy, which is
Wow.
a factor in blight. Now, I should say, in post-COVID world, there is a lot of vacancies, not just on LaSalle Street, but in offices all over America. That's not our problem. It's not for me to bail. I wasn't
Right.
around. I shouldn't have built those towers in the first place with my money, and I certainly don't need to bail them out now, which you do see happening. TIF money is being used to renovate select
So
office towers into residential.
it sounds like a TIF is basically a way to help a developer really boost up a property that they couldn't get off the ground on their own. And in this case, they've been sitting on it, and it also looks like a way for the government to take my property taxes if I live in that TIF district and help this developer get this thing off the ground. What does the government get from it? Is there some benefit to the government itself, or just the contractors that they work with who get a
Well,
lot of benefits already from
the
the government?
rationale in the literature and the politicians will defend it by saying, without that spiff, without that bribe, that guy wouldn't have built that thing. So that's now you got a dry cleaners, and you got a flower shop, you got a 7-Eleven, whatever you got. There's some people working in there, and that what was a vacant land is now throwing off property tax. So that's what's used to pay the TIF off. So if the city didn't have $1.5 million to give to Tresser Development, they had to take a loan. So these things are secret loans. It's hidden loans, hidden debt, hidden governance, and hidden finance. It's the word with underline the word hidden. That's what TIFs do. So now the city of Chicago or Orland Park or whatever we're speaking about has entered into a loan with the local bank to enable to give me that $1.5 million. And now this TIF, which is has some shape, every property inside the TIF for 23 years, every extra penny of property tax over the base when the TIF was created doesn't go to units of government that rely on property taxes, but they go into this little secret TIF account from which the loan is repaid, as well as it's now available for the next project that comes along. And so it goes wherever. Now, it should be noted for people that this is not free money, right? Units of government in Illinois, more than many other states, rely very heavily on property tax to operate. And the number one unit of government that relies on our property taxes is our public school system.
Right.
So sadly, that brings in a lot of inequity. So if you're in a very wealthy community, you got a shopping mall, a factory, or whatever, and wealthy homes, you throw off a lot of property taxes, and your schools, your public schools, look like college campuses. But 2-3 miles away in a poorer part of this county, or more modest incomes, schools are not looking so great. That's inequitable. That is not okay. So when $1 of property tax goes missing, there are victims, there are losers, and that is what the pro-TIF people will never admit to you. They're just going to say it's free money, like from the heavens,
And you touched on something that I didn't realize. TIFs are very secretive. It's not like any other. The government does something, I can get the information. They have to tell me what's going on. I'm the taxpayer. I'm paying them to do something. Does the TIF give them special protections to keep things secretive, to
Well,
not disclose all the information? I mean,
no, but it is off the books. So if your village or town is contemplating a project, like say they need a new school, or maybe you want to do community gardens, or whatever is in the minds of the people and the mayor, it has to be an open discussion. That maybe the mayor is even elected on a platform of saying, I'm going to build a new ice skating ring because one of our children. That's known. And now I say, here's the plan. It's going to be $30 million, and we're going to pay for it over 10 years. Everybody sees that. It's kind of not a surprise.
Right.
Or alternatively, you elect me as a conservative mayor, and I promise to keep everything still. We're not going to build nothing. We're going to
Right,
keep everything low key. And everybody says, okay, Tom, don't surprise us with the hockey ring, because that's
right,
not why we elected. Keep it slow. All right. The TIF is not that. A TIF is idiosyncratic and driven by clout. So if the developer approaches the mayor after the budget is in, or whatever, makes no difference. It doesn't appear on any budget documents. Now, to get the TIF passed, you still have to have an ordinance in the council. But when is the ordinance discussed?
right.
And how much
Well,
notice do the people get? Not a lot.
well, that was a big question, because there hasn't been any discussion about this. It almost sounds like the village, with a contractor who's very close to the village, the powers that be, are doing
Yeah.
something, and nobody wants to tell us what it is. And I'm thinking, listen, you were the developer, you bought the property, you knew what you were buying, and now you sat on it for 10 years, and now you want the village to come in and take money from that TIF from the schools, you said. So any
Yeah.
increase in property taxes that would normally go to benefit the schools, for example, the schools would still get the base property taxes at the time of the TIF, but anything additional that comes in goes into the TIF. And the same
Right.
with the library.
So,
There's a fire district in
yeah,
there, and the village itself,
right.
correct?
Everybody, so the TIF takes his money off the top, like Vegas, like the mob in Vegas, skimming. So if I live inside that TIF district and I look at my property tax bill, and I'm used to saying, okay, I paid $1,000 in property tax, and I'm used to seeing 56% goes to the school, so that's $560, and so on down the line. The city of Chicago, the county of Cook, the library board, everybody gets the little share of my $1,000. That's the cost of doing business. If I don't want to pay that, I got to move, right? If I want to enjoy the good things of the county of Cook and city of Chicago, all that has to offer me, I got to pay. If
Right.
I don't want to pay, I got to move away somewhere. That's how it works, okay? For better or worse. So the TIFs make all that a lie, because they will take their money off the top. And there are many TIFs in the city of Chicago that take 100% of all the property taxes
Can that be done
that
on
are being
anything? I
collected
mean,
inside the TIF.
can a government do that? Just take the entire amount of taxes in a TIF district if they want, or is there a
That's how,
restriction?
if that, because that means that in that particular TIF district, there wasn't a lot of activity going on. And then they put the TIF on it, and all whatever happened, and then other things happened. People are building, having nothing to do with Mr. Developer, just things happening. But as long as the TIF is alive, it's capturing every penny above the base. So if it was a very low base, for
Right,
whatever
I got it.
reason, and
So
it's
maybe
20,
they
now,
add
especially in
houses
places
to
like
it.
the West Loop, and places that are highly developed, you put a 20-story tower with 100 units or 200 units, all that is collected by the TIF. And so that's why we have TIFs in the city of Chicago, in these very wealthy areas, that are loaded with cash. That
Right.
money
So that,
cannot move to other parts of the city.
and I want the people watching this or listening to this to understand, they could buy a big piece of property, they could create a TIF district with a developer, and that developer can then build 100 homes in that TIF district if they wanted to. You're saying all the property taxes that would be paid by those 100 homes would actually go into the TIF district to the government, and whatever arrangement that they
Right.
decided with the developer to spend it?
For 20, yeah. So the TIF would fill up with that money for 23 years. The project
Wow.
would pay. Now the TIF is sitting with cash, and so there could be other projects is still in the limits of the TIF district that could get funded by this cash. That money cannot go to another part of your city, say that needs a firehouse or a park
So
or
you get
something.
you get 100 homes, and they all have kids. They go to the school district. That their taxes don't go to the school district to help pay for those kids going to the school district. They don't go to the library for the extra
Right.
people coming in. But
Very,
it sounds
very astute observation, which is why, Ray, so that is why you find the very strange incidents of school boards suing their mayors. And this has
right.
happened, and we've tracked this across the country, including about 12 years ago, right here in Oak Park. for that very reason. So what happens is a mayor will call the superintendent and say, look, Ray, I'm going to put a TIF downtown because I want to build this thing. Don't mess with me. I'm going to make you whole. I'm going to give you some money back channels. So we're going to do a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, between the city and the school district. It's not as much money as you would have gotten if there had been no TIF.
Right.
But it's more money that you could get without the MOU. So the superintendent's going, am I going to piss Ray off and interfere with his plans? You know, he's running for re-election.
He doesn't want to get in a
We have some
political
plans of
fight.
our own.
Right.
Right, because we want to build a swimming complex, and I'm going to need his support. So a lot of times the school superintendents just go along to get along. The elected school board members may or may not know about this, but
Right.
for sure the parents and the taxpayers know nothing. And occasionally the deal goes south, and you will see a school board member protest in city council, but they only have one vote. The school board only has one vote. So time goes by, and a new school superintendent comes in, and they look at the paperwork and their cash flow, and they go, wait a minute, something is off. Didn't Mayor Ray promise us all this money back in the day? It's not tracking. Hey, Ray, you owe us some money. And Ray says, go F yourself. I don't need to. And now we're in a lawsuit. That's what happened in Oak Park some years ago, and they spent $600,000. That's the taxpayer on both sides of the deal.
It sounds like this is a way to circumvent existing laws and procedures that require that governments tell the public, one, what they're doing, two, how they're going to spend the money in detail. I mean, I know how money is being spent, although, to be honest with you, Orland Park has not filed its annual financial audits now for 2 years in a row. We don't know what the situation is in Orland Park, and that scares me, you know, with this these TIF districts.
Well, you ought to be scared. So a professor explained this to me years and years ago when I first started getting into TIFs back in like 2011 and 12. He said, TIFs have nothing to do with economic development, which I think is a very interesting insight. It's all about hidden debt, hidden finance, and hidden governance. So if your community is politically conservative and fiscally conservative, and that is the nature of your beast, you don't like a lot of taxes, that's why you move there, you elect people who reflect that value. This is a way to circumvent that, because you could say, look, the city itself of Orland Park is not in debt. It's the TIF district, which is a creature of the city. So it is a
suddenly
kind of
right.
Yeah, believe me, because if in this example of my little strip mall, if it had completely gone belly up, if it had been hit by a meteorite or something, and there is no income coming, the city is still liable for that note. The bank isn't going to walk away from it. The bank is going to say, wait, you guys owe me $1.5 million. That's what you borrowed from me. And so, of course, the city must make good. So it's the taxpayer at the end of the day is, of course, liable for all this. We're losing money going in, and we're liable along the way.
Is it legitimate to be concerned that when a village doesn't file their audits, their financial audits, and the public has no idea what's been going on for 2 years, that possibly I mean, my suspicion is there's a huge debt in Orland Park, and the TIF now makes me feel like this is a way for them to get money to fill up this debt that they have. Now this concerns me even more.
Well,
than I did. And the other thing I want to interrupt you before you say anything. There are members of the village who are members of the school district, and they've not said anything about it, and that now concerns me too. That really concerns me that you're a member. You're a member of the village, and you're a board member on the school district that's going to lose money. That seems to be a conflict of interest to me. That really concerns me.
Well, to your first question about what was your first question about the
first question is
transparency. Transparency. Yeah. So if you have a TIF in Illinois, you are required to file an annual report with the controller's office, but the penalties are non-existent. So there are 35 cities, the last time I looked, in Illinois, that were delinquent with their paperwork. In other words, their TIFs are operating, money is being removed from circulation, people are getting paid with zero reporting. So it seems to me you ought to stop that. I mean, the law should be
Yeah.
amended that says if you
Right.
report, your TIF must be frozen at the very least. I mean, people need to, I don't know, do they need to go to jail here? I don't know. I mean,
Well, I
it
mean, they
makes me
should be
suspicious
accountable.
there's something funky
Right.
going on.
Yeah, that
They
worries
should
me
be.
too. I mean,
So I would say freeze all the TIFs in Orland Park, which would require an act of the city council or the mayor or a lawsuit. This is potentially a lawsuit here. We don't want any property taxes taken, and we certainly don't want any new TIFs created until all the paperwork is present and accounted for, and some kind of reporting to the people so that we, the people, are satisfied that these things are doing good for us, not harm for us. But the law doesn't require that, sadly.
wow. Well, I tell you what, as a writer, I'm going to focus on that because I think Susan Mendoza, the Illinois treasurer, should be imposing fines on communities that don't file their financial audits. There's no reason Orland Park hasn't filed them for 2 years. It doesn't make sense, but they are paying the attorneys. No. They are paying their financial advisors. They are paying their consultants. They're getting their money. You see it at every board meeting. Those checks get written, but we don't have a broad overview. Tom, I know this is very complicated. One final thought, an overview from you before we close the interview. Our overall, based on everything that you know, are TIFs good? If you weigh it, the good against the bad, which way does it lean? If it's done right, if it's not done right, does it?
No, we found the TIFs to be corrupting and racist, and I call for their abolition. I have information in my book, Chicago is Not Broke, Funding the City We Deserve, which you can find at www.wearenotbroke.org. But you can substitute the name of any city and put it in there. Orland Park is not broke. Detroit is not broke. You get me? Baltimore is not broke. The ideas that we have in this book, including about abolishing TIFs, are pretty much universal. The other book I want to just mention to your listeners and readers is this. This is a book on the No Game Chicago campaign that I was one of the leaders of from 2009. This tells the story of how we sent the Olympics packing, baby. We spiked the Chicago bid for the Olympics and saved everyone in Cook County probably $1,000. You're welcome.
I remember that. And thank you, by the way.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. You can go to Tresser.com and find the information on these books and the TIF work as well.
All right. My guest, Tom Tresser. Again, I don't know anybody that knows TIFs better than Tom. I've known Tom going back more than 4 decades. We're from the same generation. When journalism was really journalism, facts were really facts, and we didn't get into all this polarization and anger and confusion. Tom, thank you so much for joining me on this program.
You're welcome. Anytime.